Hi Science 7, this is our Topic 7 video lesson, and I just wanted to let you know that there is a portion at the end of this topic that does not match with the PowerPoint 2 notes. So I posted the filled in notes that you can look at if you are printing the note package. This is a look at sources of thermal energy or heat and how we have different ways that electricity can be made. And so the first one that's profiled is chemical energy, which is when coal or wood is burned to use for a heat source. And we also have batteries that are a source of chemical energy, and in the human body, food is considered chemical energy. Electrical energy has a lot of different ways that it can be produced. So hydroelectric would mean that there's running water that can turn a turbine and make electricity. We can burn fuels to generate electricity. We can get a geothermal hot steam coming from the earth to go up and turn a turbine to make electricity, or even wind. So a lot of possibilities exist. And hydroelectric, first one, you can check out these cool links about Hoover Dam, which at the time was the biggest hydroelectric plant in the world at the time it was made. Pretty cool history there. But what happens is, even though it's clean energy in terms of water that keeps running and flowing over a turbine and turning it for creating electricity, we realize that to dam the water to get this huge amount of water, we have to impact some natural areas. So there may be plants and animals whose land is now a dammed up bigger lake. It could affect fish and other animals in the water. It could affect hunting and fishing. So there are some negatives to all of these energy sources. There's always the pros and always the cons that we have to weigh when we look at which ones can be used in an area. So when we have hydroelectric fuel burning generating stations like Edmonton that burns coal to create our electricity, we also look at how there's hot water often that has to be put back into the river, and that causes thermal pollution because that may affect some of the life in the river. And we also know that burning fossil fuels releases pollution that goes into the air, and that can be a cause of acid rain. So even though there's the pluses of this, there's also the negatives for that as well. Here we have a look at how coal can be burned, and the steam of that will go in, turn this turbine here, and the turbine will be generating electricity through a generator. So this is actually what we have going on in downtown Edmonton for our electricity source. Mechanical forces are things like moving parts. If you think of brakes, and we have friction then released that will create some heat. And another example is the pressure moving parts in a bicycle pump that then can do some job of inflating a tire. And geothermal energy, our next one, is looking at how hot things like volcanoes or hot springs or geysers can also be harnessed to create electricity. So we're looking at how there's some hot springs in certain areas, sources of hot water from deep in the earth, and some that shoot out water that are called geysers, and both can be used to harness as a source of geothermal energy. And the link here on geysers in Iceland, great link to take a look at. Here we're looking at injecting regular cold water in and having it come back up as a source of hot water to the power plant that can then have it turn a turbine to create electricity. They feel like geothermal is not using up fossil fuels. It's clean, it's not forming pollution, so it's actually a very highly regarded source of electricity. There's a hot spring. Okay, solar energy. Next type of energy, this one is from the sun. And although it's reliable, there are days that are cloudy and obviously nights when solar energy is not shining down. So passive solar heating is when energy from the sun is just absorbed and held, whereas active is when there's some machinery involved, like pumps and fans, that are actually using that stored energy. So passive would be things like having windows on the south side to let sunlight in, or having dark areas, dark kind of panels to absorb the sun, or even water storage tanks that are painted black that will be hot water that is heated up with the sun during the day and used later. So active would be when there's actual solar panels with hot water that's pumping underneath and maybe circulating through the house, like in this picture. So the black area is absorbing the maximum amount of sunshine, and those pipes are getting hot. The water in them are getting hot during the day, and then they get circulated through the house and warm the house at night. So there's active solar heating of that house. These are showing the same system that we just talked about. Mentions a fan that blows it through the air, through the house here. But this is all about how it then that same water can go back to those panels and be circulated again in active solar heating. Okay, wind energy is when windmills are going to turn turbines and create electricity with wind, of course, only useful when it is windy. Some mentioned before is that your body is using up chemical energy when you eat food, and so you also create heat and are converting chemical energy to thermal energy. Composters also, with little worms that and bacteria that decompose the food scraps, they are also producing heat. So there's another example of thermal energy from chemical energy. Fossil fuels. Fossil fuels like coal, oil, natural gas are decomposed and compressed and hardened plants and animals from millions of years ago. And we notice that there's a lot of fossil fuels used for our cars, for our homes, for barbecues. However, one of the problems is that it took millions of years to form it, so it's considered non-renewable, the coal, oil, and natural gas, because it would take so long to make more. And we're then looking at how renewable sources are a better source of our energy. And you can see that coal is the one that has been used the most for a fuel source. Another problem with fossil fuels is the greenhouse gases that they produce, like specifically carbon dioxide, but other gases are produced as well. The problem with carbon dioxide building up in our atmosphere is the global warming effect that it causes. So we have these greenhouse gases that build up there, and that would be like, well, water vapor is one of them, but a lot of pollutants that are coming out of factories and smokestacks that burn fuels are collected up there, and carbon dioxide is just one of the main ones. But what happens is the sun is shining, and as it goes and hits the earth, it bounces back and gets trapped by the carbon dioxide layer. So we end up with global warming, and they have tracked that the earth's temperature is increasing over time as the carbon dioxide layer is building. So that's a negative side effect of using too many fossil fuels. So global warming can affect life on Earth in that the temperatures of water may be too high for certain fish and water creatures. It's been related to the melting of polar ice caps. It's related to heating water that circulates around the oceans and maybe causes an upset in our global climate. So a lot of far-reaching effects of global warming are known. Canadians are producing a lot of greenhouse gases because of our high use of fossil fuels for all sorts of things, including heating our homes because we live in a cooler climate. Okay, last part here, cogeneration. This is a good thing where when there's waste heat coming off of some place that's using fossil fuels, they can take that waste heat and use it to heat their structure or use that heat for some useful purpose in their factory. And so it says that only usually a third of the fossil fuel is actually used for converting into electricity. So the other 2/3, if we can use some of that for heating the building or for something useful, that is a positive thing to do. That's what cogeneration is. All right, guys. Thanks for listening to Topic 7. Remember to check out the posted filled-in notes, because they have a little bit of extra things you'll find in the posted note package that this PowerPoint did not